Are you or someone you love dealing with moderate to profound hearing loss? How has that affected your life, your relationships? Today, a story that can be a life changer, and I want to thank Cochlear Americas for asking me to help spread the word about this important alternative solution for a medical issue that affects 1 in every 3 people over 65 and 1 in every 2 people over 75. If you're dealing with hearing loss that has progressed beyond receiving benefit from a hearing aid, then you need to know about cochlear implants, an FDA-approved surgically implanted medical device that actually replaces the function of the inner ear and is designed to mimic natural hearing. I recently had the opportunity to hear firsthand how cochlear implants changed the lives of Gregg and Bobby Good, who joined me for a virtual sit-down to share their story. So let's start at the beginning. Well, and to clarify, Gregg, it is you who you're the one with the hearing loss.
Yeah, it was a slow one. I started out deaf in one ear as a child. When I met Bobby, I was still hearing very well in my left ear. I was 39, she was 38, and we got together, just our life began wonderfully with each other. And we were doing normal things, but didn't take long to figure out that I was deaf in my right ear. So she started driving all the time because it got a little scary when I was trying to read her lips while I was driving. So,
Bobby, from your perspective, what was the hardest thing about dealing with Gregg and the hearing impairment?
It was very hard. It was difficult, and our intimacy was affected at some level because some things were just too much trouble to talk about. The disability, I'm going to call it a disability, the disability overwhelmed us. It kind of flooded the boat, so to speak. And it felt like everything revolved around that. When we wanted to have people over, it always had to do with, well, are you going to be able to hear? People would invite us to go to dinner. Well, no, restaurant noises are way too much. We can't do that. Will you come to our house and we'll have a potluck or I'll cook or something? And then when they would come to our home, we'd have to sit all at the table together in the dining room. You didn't sit around in the living room with your coffee cups. You sat at the dining room table so that everybody was in good light and he could clearly see their lips to be able to communicate. And so it just affected all parts of our lives. We were very, very active and involved with a lot of people. And our lives just shrunk completely to the point that it was him and me all the time.
I got to the point where my hearing specialist, I went in for yet another hearing aid. I think I went through about 6 hearing aids. And he finally said, Gregg, you are losing the ability to understand words and to understand people at a very fast rate. And you need something more than a hearing aid. And he was the one that suggested cochlear implants.
Okay.
And I said, oh, it was like I'd never heard of it before. But he said, you're a candidate. You're to the point of needing something more than a hearing aid.
My understanding is hearing aids, they make it very, when you don't get enough results anymore. Explain to us what that's like.
The hearing aids amplify the sound. But if you don't understand what you're hearing, they can yell at you, and people would, and I would say, forget that. Yelling doesn't work. I cannot understand what you're saying. So the cochlear implant solves that problem. We went out to dinner about 3 months after my first cochlear implant. I've got one on both sides now. But we went out to dinner, and I said, Bobby, you don't need to translate for me or communicate for me anymore. And it hurt her feelings.
It did. I was waiting for it. I knew it was coming and I was happy about it. But on the other side, it was like, now what do I do? Now who are we? And my answer to him was, I'll try.
So from your perspective, Gregg, when it comes to hearing loss, being the one with the impairment, what is the hardest thing to deal with in a relationship?
I'm going back to a saying that I heard as I was getting ready for this surgery, I had somebody tell me, Gregg, if you lose your sight, you lose things. If you lose your hearing, you lose people. And that was what had happened with me. But it happened so slow that it was not. I just learned to live with it, and it was more dramatic. For me, the going from not hearing to now hearing was where my huge focus was, and to be able to all of a sudden hear things, just incredible. I remember probably 3 or 4 weeks into the process of having the cochlear implant, I was out on the porch, and there was 3 or 4 people out on the porch. Bobby was talking, and she looked at me because she was still used to her being my person. She looked at me and I said, I can hear it all. I can hear everybody.
That was a defining moment for us. Definitely.
And yeah, there was certain things that happened that convinced me that this is so spectacular, and I need to pass the word. I need to be a help to those around me. That just convinced me, that this little subtle things. Like one day I was leaving the house. I was walking through the dining room. Bobby was in the living room. And she said, as I was halfway through the dining room, she said, I love you, Gregg. And I said, I love you too. And I had my back to her. And that was something that never would have happened.
Never would have happened.
So just, I got my life back. We got our life back.
I got my honey back.
Yeah.
Thanks again to Gregg and Bobby for being so open and sharing their story. And a big thanks to Cochlear Americas for giving me the opportunity to talk about relationship challenges from the perspective of someone dealing with profound hearing loss. To learn more about cochlear implants and other implantable hearing solutions that could help you or your loved one hear again, please visit the Cochlear website at cochlear.com. I've posted the link in the video description below, so please share with anyone who may be in need of this information or has a loved one dealing with hearing loss. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Second Act TV. Bye-bye.